I'd like to do a shir that we missed last week for Parshat Vayigash, which I feel the concepts and the real basic fundamental ideas that are expressed in this shir, I feel need to be taught and shared. So I know it says Parshat Vayigash. The shir is on Parshat Vayigash. At the same time, I'd like to tie it in to this week's Parsha. So that way, we feel like we've walked away with some Parsha shir. So we have two nekudos in our Parsha that I want to talk about. One is that between Parshas Vayigash and Parshas Vayechi, there's no break. Generally, between a Parsha, you will see in the Sefer Torah that there's a break between the two. Here, if you take a look, when they do Hagba, you will see that it goes straight from Parshas Vayigash to Parshas Vayechi. And as Rashi tells us, their eyes and hearts were closed from the Galus, from the exile experience. We have to understand, why is there no break from Parshas Vayigash, which is the beginning of the Galus, even though the Geula is going to happen in Sefer Shemot? We have a little bit of Geula here with Yaakov Avinu being buried in Eretz Yisrael. We have to talk about why there's no break. That will be the last Nekuda we'll talk about. The second idea, and this we will see reflected in what we're going to learn tonight, is the beginning of Perek Mem Tet. You do not have this in front of you. The pasuk says, "Vayikra Yaakov banav." Yaakov Avinu called to his son, Vayomer. He said, "Ha'asvu v'agida lachem et asher yikra etchem ba'achris hayamim." Come, and I'm going to tell you what's going to happen at the end of time, which Chazal say he wanted to tell them what? When the Mashiach was going to come. And Nistaku Menu Shechina, the divine presence left him. And then he said, "Hikapsu v'shemu b'nei Yaakov v'shemu Yisrael avichem." Come, listen to your father, and he began to bless them. The Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh says that, albeit that Ruach HaKodesh was taken away from him and he wasn't able to tell us when Mashiach is going to come, nevertheless hinted at in this Perek are mediums of how to bring Mashiach, of what are some of the dynamics that indeed we will be able to reach that Achris Hayamim, that end of days. Where, what, how, that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So my friends, let's take a look at today's sheets. We're doing an inyan in last week's Parsha. I am telling you, the ideas here tonight are so fundamental. You want to go on the hilltops of Yerushalayim and scream them out. So here goes. When Yaakov Avinu is told that Yosef Chai, Yosef HaTzadik is alive. So let's take a look. They went up from Egypt, came to land of Canaan to Yaakov, their father, and told him, saying, Yosef is still alive, and he's the ruler over the whole land of Egypt. But his heart rejected it, for he could not believe them. However, when they related to him all the words that Joseph had spoken, and saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to transport him, the spirit of their father Yaakov was revived. And the question the Mefarshim ask is, what was it about the wagons that Yosef had sent to transport him that suddenly, Vatechi Ruach Yaakov Aviyam, I believe he's alive. And the question is particularly fascinating when you take a look at the Chumash, and this is a story in of its own right. It wasn't Yosef who sent the wagons, it was Paro. So Yosef didn't even send the wagons. So what is it about these wagons that, so to speak, Yosef sent that he didn't send, that Paro sent? Now I know he's alive. So Rashi teaches us the idea from the Medrash. Let's take a look at the Medrash inside source number 2. Rabbi Levi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan Bar Shula, Amar Lahem, Yosef HaTzadik says, Im Yamin Lachem Harei Mutav. If our father believes you when you tell him I'm alive, great. V'im Lav, and if not, Atem Omrim Lo, tell him the following. B'sha'ah shepeirashti mimcha, the time that Yosef HaTzadik left his father, Lo b'Parshat Eglufa yita osek? Were we not studying the law of the Egla Arufa? Now, just to remind ourselves, this is source 3. What is the law of the Egla Arufa? We're familiar with the end of Parshat Shoftim. If a person is murdered and you don't know who murdered the person, so they measure what is the nearest city, and the nearest city to that murdered person, they elders of the city go to a nachal, they go to a brook, and they basically decapitate a calf. And they say, Yadenu lo shafchu et hadam hazeh, Yadenu lo ra'u, we are not responsible for this death. Anytime a person came to our city, we made sure they had a place to stay, we made sure that they had food, we escorted them out of the city. We are not held responsible. So the Medrash seems to allude to the fact that Yaakov Avinu escorted Yosef when he asked him to go find the brothers. How are they doing? So Yosef HaTzadik said to him, why are you escorting me? He said, let me tell you halacha. There's right the halacha v'egla rufa. So now Yosef HaTzadik is saying to his father, if he doesn't remember, believe if I'm alive or not, at least tell him I still remember the what? The last thing we learned. Now, obviously, we look at this medrash and we say, agalos are wagons. Egla is a what? A calf. I mean, you're really what? You're stretching it a bit. Can we hear that? Yeah, we're on the same page. So the medrash, and it's great medrash rabbah in the art scroll, he points out that the heifers are the ones used to draw the wagons. So when you mention wagons, with the wagons come what? It's with the car comes the driver. That's the way things work. It's still a little bit what? And further, as Rav Kushalevsky points out in Torah Tzvi in sources 4 and 5, maybe he had a good memory. Right? Is it really an indication that he was really alive? And he notes that one only remembers things that are relevant to your life. If it's not relevant to your life, do you know how many things people tell me that I immediately what?
Check out.
Why? Because it has no bearing on my life. If something's important to you, if something's meaningful to you, then you remember. So just the fact that he remembered this, and really we know that when Yaakov Avinu didn't believe he was alive, well, the brothers saw him. Of course he's alive. They're not going to lie. What was he really asking? Ha'od Yosef Chai, is he alive spiritually? And that's why by answering and saying, I remember the last thing we learned, he's really saying that what? I'm holding, I'm alive, I'm Omei B'Sitko, I'm still holding in my what? In my spirituality. So let's try to understand a little bit more deeper. What is it about the Egla Arufa? I know it was the last thing they learned. I hear it. Obviously, there's something deeper in the message that Yosef HaTzadik is saying. The last thing we learned was the Egla Arufa. He's giving him a message with the Egla Arufa, and the question is, what is it? So let's begin, and we're going to build and develop. Rav Ragro starts the following. The law of the Egla Arufa, source 6, teaches us the degree to which the obligation to value human life extends. It also illustrates the awesome responsibility we have when we're derelict in these areas. We have to state that they saw to it the person adequate food, proper escort. You can't excuse yourself from being partially responsible for his tragic death. And this shows us the profound degree of concern which is required regarding the welfare of all people. And he brings that famous Gemara of the potential convert that says to Hillel, teach me the whole Torah on one foot. Really, the whole Torah on one foot is know how to treat other people. Yiddishkeit is very into ben adam l'chaveiro. How to be a mensch. That's the ABCs of what Yiddishkeit is about. I remember when I was going out with my husband, he kept on saying, a galach is from, a Jew is edel. I can't translate that. You'll have to do the best you can. When Joseph wanted to communicate with his father in source 7 and to assure him that he had survived, he knew he had to show his father that not only had he survived physically, but also he had not succumbed to the depraved elements of the Egyptian society. Yosef needed to inform Yaakov he remembered and cherished the fundamental morals upon which Torah is based. That's what he's communicating to his father. Not just I'm alive, and not just that I remember the Torah and it's important to me. That's nice. But the bigger question is what? Are you living it? Right? Are you a mensch? Are you living the morals of Torah? And Yosef HaTzadik proved he remained firm in his reverence for the sanctity of interpersonal relationships. And what he really was testing, and this is with the brothers and the goblet, is where are the brothers? Are they holding by this aspect of mutual responsibility of caring for others? And that's why the message that he sent to Yaakov Avinu was, you should know, Yashakach, I tested the brothers, and they're also mentioned. They also are taking care of their younger brother. And what he's really trying to say is, we'll be able to survive this exile. Because in order to survive the exile, they first had to become a nation. And the way you are a nation is taking care of each other. And the message that Yaakov Avinu was giving, that Yosef HaTzadik was giving Yaakov Avinu was, not only am I alive, but I really feel that the brothers have finally come to this place of really caring for each other, that they've reached this level called nationhood, and now you don't have to worry about going down to Egypt. We are going to be able to what? Come back. And this is the message, as Rav Zweig speaks about. He says what's so fascinating about the Egla Rufa is the Gemara says, the Pasuk says that the elders say, Kaper lamcha Yisrael, forgive the nation of Israel. And the Chazal say, forgive the nation, I'm in the bracket in 8, is a reference to the Jewish people that left Egypt. Hundreds of years later, we're getting forgiveness for the Jews that left Egypt. I'm missing something. We should be just getting forgiveness for who? For themselves. Kaper lamcha Yisrael, gain forgiveness for the Jews that left Egypt. Even though the actual generation in 8 that left Egypt was long gone, the national identity remains, and therefore an atonement can be brought even for those that left Egypt, because the corporate entity remains. So listen closely. There's a beautiful piece of Rav Soloveitchik that he speaks about when 10 men come together on a rainy afternoon to daven mincha. It's not 10 men who are saying Ashrei Yoshvei Beisecha. It's the corporate personality of the entire Jewish people, past, present, and future. My friends, this is so fundamental. You see, sometimes I may even fool myself in thinking that I am here right now and living in the here and now. I am. But I want you to know something. It's much deeper than that. I, as an individual living in the here and now, am attached to the entire Jewish people, past, present, and future, and every one of my actions affects the entire cosmic trajectory of the Jewish people from past, present, and future. Do any of you feel any burden here? No, not yet. Okay, good. We'll work on it. When they're getting forgiveness for those living at that time, that forgiveness impacts all of Jewish history. And this is the message that Yaakov Avinu was being told. 9. Clearly, Yosef, and pretty soon Yaakov as well, had come to the realization that this was the beginning of the fulfillment of Hashem's punishment to Abraham, that his children would be in a foreign land. The only thing worse would be the possibility they would never leave. However, in order to leave, they first had to become a nation. That's what we just mentioned. Overcoming the final barrier to achieving nationhood by appreciating the value of each and every member. And that's the message that Yaakov Avinu is being told. We've become a nation. I can tell you the brothers have passed the test. We live Egla Arufa. Egla Arufa is synonymous with being a nation, past, present, and future, that we care about each other. Once we've entered into that arena, we can go into Golos, and now we will also be able to come out. I want to take this a little bit further in an absolutely stunning piece, and I want to take it slowly because it's just too good to pass up. The Tusha Rebbe. Tush is in Montreal, and it is like Square Town. It is just a group of streets that is just Hasidic names, everything about it. I had the schus of being there for Shabbos a few years ago. Is one of the best Shabboses of my life. It was like living in a different dimension. What'd you say? A shtetl. Yeah, it was mamash a shtetl. I didn't understand a word of anything that went on. Everyone spoke in Yiddish. I wasn't Yotzei Kiddush or Hamotzi or anything else. I was supposed to make my own. I didn't understand that. I mean, whatever. It was an unforgettable Shabbos. They poured the Havdalah onto the floor. It has to be overflowing. I'm thinking, like, who cleans this up every week? Okay, it was. They were very nice people. Source number 11. The Tusha Rebbe says the following, Zatzal. He says, they asked for forgiveness. We don't know who murdered him. We asked for forgiveness. What happens, he says, if after they go through this whole ceremony, they find the murderer? What happens? Does he stand trial or not? And the answer is? You understand the question? And the answer is, of course he stands trial. In fact, they say that a worm came out of this calf and attached itself to the murderer, and that's how they knew who he was. So we're very interested in finding who did this crime. So then the obvious question is, if you've gotten forgiveness, so then why was it necessary to, do a judgment on this murderer? And he says the following, in the asterisk in 11. V'katvu harishonim zal kitam v'shorish mitzvah zuhi mipnei sheYisrael arevim zeh lazeh. We are connected, held accountable, one for each other. V'lachin kasher nasa ritzichat hanefesh b'Yisrael. Let's listen to this. When one person is killed, kol zman shelo asu dinim hareg, all the while that you don't do judgment with the murderer, Sharek kitruga kol b'nei Israel. There is an accountability on all of us. Afal elo shlargu, even those who didn't kill him. Why? Because we're all mutually responsible. So when they did the Egla Arufa, bao in the double bracket, lechaper et chela kachet, sheyesh lechol Yisrael b'zeh mitzad arevus, uvao levatel b'zeh koach hakitrug asherem mikoach zeh al Yisrael. There's two accountabilities. One, you have to find the murderer. Two is, even if you didn't even know the guy or not connected, the fact that we're all interconnected. If one Jew is killed, we are held responsible as a nation because we're all connected to each other. What did they get forgiveness for? That part of theirs that needed atonement for being part of a nation where this atrocity occurred. That doesn't take away from the atonement of what? Of the murderer himself, exactly. But we have to understand, you see, again, let's go back to this image. I don't just live my life, shalom alay nafshi, in my Dalit Amos. I live my life and leave me alone. No. My life is interconnected with every single Jew. And if something happens, there is some level of culpability and accountability, and I'm going to use the word responsibility, on every other Jew. And it's really past, present, and future. Wow. Isn't it exciting to be part of such a nation? Do you feel that excitement? Not yet. It's a warmth, yes. I'm part of something much larger than myself. Wow. Therefore, when we look at in 12, the Shvatim, the tribes selling Yosef, it wasn't just the tribes that sold Yosef. We are all accountable for that sale, and hence you can have the Asara Haragei Malchus. What do they have to do with it? Okay, you want to tell me they're the Gilgulim? I hear it, but I'm telling you something much more fundamental. We're all responsible at all stages, and we until today are still suffering from the sale of Yosef and from the Cheda Egel. I wasn't there. Wrong. You're not getting it. I may not have been there physically, but I'm all connected. 10 Jews. Ashrei Yoshrei Beisecha, past, present, and future. The way the Rav calls it is, he calls it the Knesset Yisrael, right? The totality of the Jewish people. And that is why, my friends, when Yosef HaTzadik comes back in 13 and tells him, he's told, Yaakov is told that Yosef is alive, V'techi ruach Yaakov avihem. It's not just that Yaakov's spirit was revived, it's redemption for the entire Jewish people. That everything has to be looked at, not just from the micro level, but from the macro level as well. Now, therefore, he says that when an individual does tshuva, we know the Gemara says in the double squiggling in 13, Yachid shasa tshuva mochlim l'chol olam kulo. The entire world is granted forgiveness. Because that aspect of the way I am connected to the whole world is going to impact on the tshuva that I do, on the mitzvahs that I do. And hence we have this idea in 14 to be motzi somebody, that I can fulfill somebody's obligation. So, if you think about it, it doesn't make sense. Someone's making kiddush for me. Let's leave Tush aside, right? Like, someone's making kiddush for me. Someone's making hamotzi for me. Don't I have a personal obligation to make it? Yes. But we all are interconnected together, that if somebody is going to have me in mind and I have in mind to fulfill my obligation through them, guess what? I've done my mitzvah. That is the extent of how we are all connected together. As he says here in the asterisk, the upshot of this is the Yesod Shel Din Arevos, is our responsibility, mutual responsibility, which is Mechayev Otanu, which demands from us Le'ehov et kol echad Yisrael. Here's the upshot. If we're all in this together, and we're all responsible for each other, then guess what? I have an obligation to love every single person. Because really, we're all one. I know we look different. That's just our bodies. Right? But our souls are what? Coming from one tree. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all connected. To the extent, he says in the bracket, El Shebemes Hukach, Shechaveiro Hu Chelek Mimenu. Rak Shemitzad Aguf Hadam Nireh Mufrad Muvdam Mechaveiro. It's just external that we don't think that we're connected. And then he says something absolutely stupendous. In 15a, bottom right here, he says, even if you haven't yet felt this, fake it until you make it. And listen to the way it's gewaldig. He touches a pasuk that we may be familiar with. The pasuk says, Sha'al avicha v'yagedcha. Go ask your father and he will tell you. That's how he touches the pasuk. Means, go ask the elders, they'll give you direction. Sha'al, yes, means to ask, but sha'al also means to borrow. Sha'al Avicha means that even if you don't feel Avicha, Hashem, your ultimate father, you don't feel that Hashem is Avicha, he is your father, and you have this close relationship with him, then Sha'al Avicha. Pretend that you have this close relationship with Hashem. Borrow, right? Fake it. Until you then become what? Act this way as if Hashem is your father in a borrowed sense. Go through the motions until you what? Feel it. And he describes in 15b, and I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this. He says it's like borrowing money from the bank. So I can say I own 3 apartments. Now, do I own 3 apartments? No. Who really owns the apartments? The bank owns the apartments. But I act as if they're what? Mine. Now, I don't have a few million shekels to be able to buy apartments, so I borrow the money. But in my mind, they're what? They're mine. If you can't love everybody, borrow it. And then it's yours. And he says in 16, again, I preface this because Tush is a very intimate community. 16, וכל אחד במקום שהוא נמצא, צריך להתאחד עם בני ישראל אשר במקום ההוא. וכיוון שקודש בריך הוא הזמינם לפונדק אחד, לדור בעיר אחד, עליהם להתקשר יחד באהבה וחיבה. Particularly if you live together. Why did Hashem put these people, you know, what is it, Mr. Rogers, Lahavdil, in your neighborhood? Forget the neighbor in your neighborhood. Right? Why are all of these people together? You started singing in your head. I know. I heard it. Why are all of these people together? It's not by accident. Why are all of us in this room together when we're all different types, different strokes, different stripes? Because the Ribono Shel Olam wanted all of us to be here tonight to learn Torah together. Why? I can't tell you. But what is my responsibility? To go over to another person and say, Shalom Aleichem, are you new? Where do you live? How can I be of help? Because we're all connected. That's the essence of what Yiddishkeit is about. And hence in 17, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lazeh. Everyone is mutually responsible for each other. Areva doesn't only mean mutual responsibility. Arevot v'harevna Hashem means what? Say it. Sweet. That when I say Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lazeh, we have to focus in on how sweet it is to be interconnected together. Wow. Now I understand.
Shira?
Yes, ma'am.
So it means mixed.
Yes.
So if you want to be sweet and you have to really keep on mixing together. You can't separate yourself.
Right. It's an excellent comment. Arevos means to mix, like Erev. It's a mixture of dark and light. So it's about mixing with other people, intermingling with other people. It's not just sitting in your own 4 quarters. Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand, like, why? What's the point of being so connected with other people?
Great. That's such a great question. I love it. That's a great question. Why is it so important to be so connected? Just leave me alone and I'll be happy. Anyone want to answer the question? It's a fantastic question. Anyone want to answer it? Yeah, go ahead.
Because it affects your own life.
Tell me.
People who are alone, I just read this about the article, that people who are lonely, it affects the enzymes in your body. It affects the functioning of your proteins. People need to be connected.
People need to be connected emotionally.
So for survival, you're saying?
Yeah. So she's telling me on a medical level for survival. You're going to answer us over there?
Yeah, because I think it brings out parts of yourself, right?
It brings out
Parts of yourself
parts of yourself. 100%. Tell me how.
that you haven't discovered yourself.
Very good. You are going to discover different parts of yourself when you are interacting. And I'll just go ahead.
Also, like if we're supposed to be mimicking Hashem, the only way to really bring out those qualities in ourselves is to interact with people.
Good. So the only way to bring out the qualities is interact. I want to take off on that. Go ahead.
There was a documentary made about happiness, and they went across the whole world and they did a study, and they studied people from all economic levels, and they found that the secret of happiness is not money and is not other things. What it is connecting with other people.
Wow, secret of happiness is connection with others. You've got a lot of answers here.
Also, but how do you do chesed if you're not doing it for yourself?
Right, you need chesed to do others, right? Right, right. And that is the way we bring out our Tzelem Elokim, is by being emulating the Ribono Shel Olam. I will also say that unity, is particularly the unity of the Jewish people, is what keeps us alive and what keeps us special. And you will notice that you have 3 boys who landed up in prison in Japan. I'm not commenting on what they did. It was right, it was wrong. Don't take anything someone gives you. That was the bottom line of the story. But all the Jews are what? Are trying to help these 3 boys. Hurricane Sandy, some of you were there for, you know Hurricane Sandy, what I'm talking about? Who came out to give food for everybody? It's the Jews who take care of each other. And that feeling of family is the vision that Hashem has for us. That we're really all of His children and we should take care of each other, all of us as children.
I saw a quote that says, "We're not the biggest nation, we're the biggest family."
Oh, I love it. Let me repeat that. We're not the biggest family, we're the biggest nation, we're the biggest family. Beautiful, I love it. Okay, shkoach. Let's move on here. Therefore, in 19, going back to the Egla Rufa, this is what the Egla Rufa represents. Hamoreh al inyan harevos. That we are responsible. If a Jew dies, we don't just say, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," and then I continue eating my croissant and drinking my coffee. No, we make a whole ceremony about it because we care about others, and we say we did all that we could have done to try to make sure that this didn't happen. And that's the message that Yaakov Avinu is getting. He's getting the message from Yosef HaTzadik, Ki kol geula ba idei koach ha'arevut u'besora zu hechyata rucho shel Yaakov. That Joseph is saying, I remember the lesson, I've learned the lesson, I've lived the lesson, and it's about caring for others. And that's why, listen to what he says here. And this is so appropriate that we have a Asara B'Tevet this week on Friday. And we know that Asara B'Tevet, people call it a minor fast. We know that there's nothing minor about Asara B'Tevet. The Chasam Sofer, very famous, says, every year in Asara B'Tevet, Hashem decides, with the Beis Din Shamala, will there be a Tisha B'Av this year? And that's why on Asar B'Tevet, it's imperative to really yearn for the Geula. Now, here's my punchline. Listen closely. Says the Tasha Rebbe, we daven for the Geula. We yearn for the Geula. But that is not enough. Rather, bottom of 19, Ki kol echad yesh lo chelek b'vias Mashiach asher alav l'takein. We all have something to do to bring Mashiach. V'lo dai b'zeh shemitpalel al geula. It's not enough. Of course, you have to daven, but it's not enough. V'omer b'fiv sherotzeh v'vira Mashiach. We want Mashiach now. It's not enough. Double underline. Ela tzarich lasod pulot lazeh. You have to act in a way that will bring Mashiach closer. How so? Ulaharbot shalom ba'olam shebekoach zeh tiheh geula. Are you bringing more peace into this world? Are you creating this achdus? And he tells a story of Rabbi Elimelech Mulzhinsky's son, who after he died, I can't explain you the story, it's Hasidic, yeah? He went to look for his father in heaven where he was, and he found his father, and his father gave him this message. And he says in source 20, Tered lamata, go down, my son, back down to earth. I don't know how he got up there in the first place, but wherever he got up, go down. V'tarer b'nei Israel, and awaken them. She'eh b'neihem ava v'achba, that there should be love and brotherhood. V'tarish olamos bavor davar zeh, and storm the world for this. Ki b'koach zeh yimtaku kol hadinim, this is what will sweeten the judgment. U'b'koach zeh tieh geula shlema b'mheira, and this is what's going to bring the final redemption. And that, my friends, goes back to what we began with in our Parsha. Vayikra Yaakov banav vayomar ha'asvu. What does ha'asvu mean? Gather together. And I'll tell you what will be in the Achrus Hayamim. And then the next pasuk again. Hikapsu v'shimu b'nei Yaakov v'shimu OUisrael avichem. That's the answer. I can't tell you when Mashiach will come, but I'm telling you how to bring it. Ha'asvu. Hikapsu, learn how to what? Get along. Ish kibirchaso beirach osam. He giving them a collective blessing that all of us, okay, Yehuda, you have your blessing, and Dan, your blessing. But in the end, I'm blessing all of you to be like each other. Because you're really what? One entity. That's the message of the Parsha. That's the message of Eglah Rufa, and then that's the message for our lives. How can we extend ourselves to create more unity within our people? And my friends, there are unfortunately plenty of opportunities to do so.
I live on probably one of the least religious blocks in all of OUisrael. And I feel very honored to be living there. We live on Schatz, which is it's by Betzalel, it's between Shmuel Hanagin and King George. 2 cafes, one's kosher, closes on Shabbos, and the other one's not kosher. Whatever.
Not yet.
But the opportunity that we have to talk to people.
Beautiful.
And to
And be a model.
spend time with people who, wouldn't normally look at my husband with the beard and the jacket and the black hat and the whole deal, right? But my husband walks up to everybody and
Beautiful.
says hello and how
Beautiful.
are you? And
That's it. That's it.
it's
That's
such
the
an
model.
opportunity.
That's the model.
At first I thought, what are we gonna do here? And now I see what we're doing now.
Wow. Right. And we all have in our own, that's it. We don't live isolated. We're all connected. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Indeed, in 24, I'm trying to move a little bit here. This was Yosef Hatzadik's raison d'etre in life. You see, when Yosef Hatzadik is speaking Lashon Hara in quotations about his brothers, what was he really doing? I care about them. I want them to be better. It's, you can reframe anything. It could be Lashon Hara, or it could be, I care about them and I feel like somebody needs to give them Musar in a way that they can hear it. I'm going to our Father. Yosef Hatzadik is the one who takes care of the entire Egyptian culture. He is somebody who feels responsibility for others. It's interesting, the Vayavinu Bamikra, I'm just moving here because I want to move here, in 25 and 26 points out that what did Yaakov Avinu see? It was Paro who sent the wagons, right? It had the official insignia of Egypt, even though Medrash says Yehuda burned them. I'm not getting to that right now. It wasn't the wagons that he saw. If you take a look at the psukim, Yosef adds to the wagons a lot of food and a lot of provisions. And that's what Yosef saw. And that's living Eglah Rufa. You're not just bringing wagons to escort me back. You're making sure that I and the family have enough food for the whole time we come down there. And that is what so impressed Yaakov Avinu. It's not just talking about, we learned a topic together. The key in life is being able to what? To implement it. To make it part of yours. Good. Okay, so that, my friends, is idea number uno for today. We're going to have 3. That was uno. The first idea is the Eglah Rufa represents mutual responsibility. Asara b'teve, see how we can go out and try to create shalom. That is what brings the geula. And I'll tell you, we have opportunities. Next idea is Yiram Hayam, Rav Michal Twersky from Milwaukee. Milwaukee, very good.
Ami Meg.
Okay, so here he goes in 28. He says, "V'nei ayen b'peirush matno kahuna shemevi stira b'divrei Rashi." The matno kahuna brings what seems to be like a contradiction within Rashi. In the Chumash, he says, "Vayarat hagalos." He saw the wagons. What are the wagons? The wagons are the Egla Rufa. In the Medrash Rabbah, Rashi says that the wagons are the wagons that transported the items of the Mishkan in Parshat Naso. You know, you had all the tapestries and the poles, and they had wagons. Well, this makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. Now I'm not stretching it from, calves to wagons. Now I'm talking about wagons are wagons. But now I have a problem. My problem is, how could Rashi say, well, wagons are what transported the Mishkan, and wagons are the Egla Rufa? In my mind, there is no what? Connection between the two. So Rav Michal Twersky in this Yiram Hayam offers the following suggestion. And this is our second idea for today. What Yosef Atzadik is really saying is, Abba, I survived Egypt without being influenced, which is really, really what? Really hard. It's really hard. And what's the key? And I want us to keep this key for life. Since I've read this piece, it keeps on coming back to me. Source 30, let's learn together. The Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, the asterisk in 30. Shahadam nimsa kol kulo, a person is entirely found b'makom shu choshev, the place that he's thinking. So let's think about this for a moment. Let me explain this. You're in the middle of Shemona Esrei, ready? And you're thinking about, did I defrost the chicken for dinner? We had chicken last night. We can't have chicken again tonight. What can I make chicken different tonight? At Samach David, maybe we won't have chicken. Maybe I didn't defrost it. But if I don't have chicken, what am I going to have? Moti manach dulach. Any of you been there? So you think you're in Shemona Esrei. It says about Shem Tov HaKadosh, where are you? You're in your kitchen. Now you could be in your kitchen. Someone was just emailed me this week that she says that every time she cracks eggs, she davens for my daughter should have children. So you could be in your kitchen, and you're really where? In your sitter. This is very profound. I want you to hold this, how profound this is, because for me it's like, wow. Where your thoughts are is where you are. And we fool ourselves in thinking, oh, I'm very frum, I'm in shul. Really, you're in shul? Really? Well, part of the time I'm in shul. That's what I thought. Where are we most of the time? We live in our thoughts. He brings an example, he says, that his father lived in Milwaukee for 40 years. And someone asked him, how's Milwaukee doing? He says, I don't know, I never left my hometown. You could be in Milwaukee for 40 years and what? Never been in Milwaukee. Yeah, are you with me here? And this is very deep, because this is the way you can survive in places that are so challenging, that I'm physically there, but emotionally and mentally, I'm in a totally different place. What'd you say?
It's not easy.
Yeah. It's not easy. It's not easy. What'd you say?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, you didn't say anything.
I answered myself.
Oh, you answered yourself. Okay, great. Okay.
We hear about some of the reports of the hostages who were rescued.
Yes.
They said the only way they survived was that they just didn't think about where they were. They
Right.
thought about shoppers.
Right, you have to think about a different reality. Now, let's pull this together. Source 31 and 32. Let's talk about the Mishkan. This is the famous idea of Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, and we'll try to make it as easy as possible. we know that all the malachos that we learn of what you're not allowed to do on Shabbos comes from the Mishkan and the halachos of the Mishkan. So there is a halacha on Shabbos that if you dismantle something, you're only liable for dismantling is if you build in the same place you dismantled. Right? I'm not talking halachically here, I'm talking about a structure. That's the halacha. You have to dismantle and rebuild in the same place. Well, hold on a second. When they dismantled in the Midbar, what were they dismantling? The Mishkan. Where did they rebuild it?
Somewhere else.
It's somewhere else. So you're telling me the very law of dismantling in order to build is learned from the Mishkan, when the Mishkan itself, they built it in a different place. So Rav Chaim Shmulevitz says, no, you don't get it. Where were they in the Mishkan? And the example that he gives, it's a baby. A baby can be with its mother, and they can go to Yesh, and they can go to Bazaar Strauss, and they can go to China for all, I don't know why they do that, but they can go anywhere. Where is the baby? In its mother's arms. The Jewish people throughout the desert experience were always in Hashem's arms. It wasn't dismantling in a different place, it was dismantling in the same place. They never left the mindset of I am with Hashem. Likewise, what is the Egla Arufa about? The Egla Arufa is about the mitzvah of Levaya. This is the end of 33. That when a person escorts you, so to a real extent, you are connected with the person that has escorted you, and that's the protection that a person has, that they're not going to be harmed. So even though they're walking on the road alone, where are they really? Back with the people that have escorted them. What Yaakov Avinu is being told by his son, whether you use the imagery of the agalos in the Mishkan, or you use the imagery of the levaya, of the escorting, the Egla Rufa, it's the same imagery. And the imagery is, I never left my father's home. I was always with you. And hence, I can remain in Egypt and not be affected. Let's hear this a little bit deeper, my friends, in the Siva Shalom. The Siva Shalom speaks about when Yaakov Avinu hears that Yosef, Tarov Taraf Yosef, Pasuk says in 35, Vayima'en li nachem. He refused to be comforted. And the question is, you have to move on. How could you refuse to be comforted? And the answer is because he knew the Avos, and this is in the Siva Shalom throughout Breshit, the Avos' whole body was connected to the will of God. If he couldn't be comforted, it means that Hashem didn't want him to be comforted. It's like Avraham Avinu has to extend his hand to take the knife to kill his son. Why does he have to extend his hand? Because his hand knew, you're not supposed to do this. So he had to go against the natural inclination of his hand. Yaakov Avinu on the deeper level knew he couldn't be comforted because he had to continuously think about his son. He couldn't stop about thinking him for a moment. And the only way that Yosef was survived in the arrow, Shuaya Mikushar LeYaakov, VeYaakov Haya Mikushar Elav. That Yosef Atzadik was connected to his father, and his father was connected to him. And hence we have, at the moment of the test of Eshet Potiphar, he saw what? What you can know Shalaviv, he saw his father. Yes, he's physically in Egypt, but where is he really? He's with his father all the time. And the imagery he gives in 36, it's like a person drowning in the water, and you throw them a what? A life, what do you call it? Life preserver? Whatever it is. You have to hold on for what? Dear life. And hence, and listen to this, it's so beautiful in 37. When Yosef HaTzadik says, Ani Yosef ha'od avichai, I am Yosef, is my father still alive? What do you mean is my father still alive? They just told him what? He's alive. No, it's not a question. Hainu avi shali, ha'atkashrut shel avi in the asterisk in 37, Elai, ha'udena chaya, shadayin ha'kesher beinenu malei chiyus. What he's telling them is a statement. I am Yosef, and you know why I am Yosef? Because Ha'od Avi Chai, my father, has continuously been alive within me. I never once forgot him. I never once broke the connection. And because of that, I can be Yosef. And that, my friends, is a message for us, where we have to recognize that we need to create in our own lives our Yaakov Avinus. We have to create in our own lives the individuals and the mindsets where we can feel that it's my life preserver. So that when I'm in a challenging situation, when my morals and values are being tested, I'm able to go back to that image. It could be a parent, it could be a teacher, it could be an experience of Kedusha, that when I see this image in my mind, I say, what? I'm drawn back. You know, I'm sure all of you here have gone on rowboats, you know, the non-fancy ones. And like, they first have to take off the what? The rope. And then what? You can go. You can sit on that rowboat, and as long as that rope is attached to that log, it's going nowhere. We will go nowhere as long as we have a rope attached to a log. Are we following me here? We have to be attached to something of spirituality, people, experiences, to ground us. So that I may be in who knows where, and I may work in who knows what environment, but I'm able to stand strong because of the image in my head. And that's something we have to ask ourselves. Who is that image for us? What is that image for us? So, my friends, we have 2 ideas so far, and we're going to end with the third. One is why the Egla Rufa. The Egla Rufa is the essence of Yiddishkeit, and that's what Yosef HaTzadik is telling him. It's not just that I remember it, I live it. And the only way we're going to get out of Golus Mitzrayim, and the only way we're going to get out of the Golus of Edom that we're in now, Golus Yishmael, is if we live this concept. One word, Arevos. He'asfu, hikapsu. We have to learn to get together. And it starts on the small things. It starts in rooms like this, where people connect from different backgrounds, different types. And we feel that we're connected, that we're a family. And there's something so beautiful. I care about you, even if I don't even know your name. But I care about you because we're connected. We're one tree. And that is what the whole essence of Yiddishkeit is about. Arevos, it's sweet. And if you don't feel it, sha'al avicha v'yagercha. Fake it till you make it. Put on a smile. Oh, it's so good to see you. It will come naturally after a while. Second idea, the Egla Arufa is reminding us, and the Agolos, you are where your mind is. And we're all surrounded, particularly in this world we live in. We have so many different things we're bombarded with. What is the image that we have? Ani Yosef Ha'od Avi Chai. What's alive in our mind? What do we see? What's our anchor? What's our rope? Now we have a third idea, totally different. We'll get back to our original question of why this is a Parsha Stuma. The Kedushas Levi, source 41. Ramaz lo Yaakov she'al yid'ag mahagalos. Yosef HaTzadik is hinting to Yaakov Avinu should not be worried about the impending Egyptian exile. Ki kol zeh siba l'geula, because everything that transpires is for the sake of the ultimate redemption. Ki hara'ah, He has siba l'tova. Bad things happen only to serve as a cause for ensuing goodness. How did Yosef hint to this to his father? By sending him gifts on wagons. For the word for wagon, agala, is related to the word for circle, igul. And a cause of something is also termed circular. The word for cause in Hebrew, siba, is related to the word to circle, l'savev, and the noun circulation, sivuv, and so forth. We see this relationship between the concept of circle and cause in English in the phrases turn of events, or something turning into something else. He's telling him the fact that we're going down to Egypt and everything that happened is all for what? A larger purpose. Don't worry. On the third level, the agalos aren't the aglarufa. They're not the agalos, the wagons of the Mishkan. They're agalos like they sound, wagons. So what's the big deal about wagons? Wagons are circles. They ride on wheels. And the message Yaakov Avinu is being told is now we're going to Gullus, but don't worry. A circle goes to the bottom and then comes to the top. It's interesting, the Shvile Pinchas, picking up on this Kedushas Levi in 44, speaks about a Gulos is made up of two words, Ayin Galut, the 70 nations that will exile us. Laseit Oto, to carry him, to elevate him, to realize that there's a larger picture here in this world. And I want to share with you, and this is our final idea, and it's spectacular. When you look at Ashrei, you will notice that there is no letter Nun. However, there's a letter that comes after Nun, which is Samech. And in Samech we have Somech Hashem l'chol hanoflim. Hashem supports all those who fall. So if you don't want to talk about falling, so don't talk about it at all. Like, why are you putting it in the Samech? You're like stuffing it in there? Listen to this Shvilei Pinchas. If you take a look at the way a nun is written, a nun in the Chumash has a little top and a little bottom, right? We look at a nun like this, as like an L. But in the Chumash, it has a little bit of a hood on the top. When you put two nuns together, what letter do you get? A samech. Listen closely. Yaakov Avinu is being told, life is a circle. You can't stop at nun, at a half a circle, because you're stopping the process. You have to realize that there's a larger picture there. Somech Hashem l'chol hanoflim. Hashem is going to Samech. Nun and Samech is Nes. That's the miracle. That Hashem is going to lift you up. Sometimes we see it in this world, sometimes we don't. But remember what we spoke about? Knesset Yisrael, that past, present, and future really all work what? Together. So even if I don't see it in my lifetime, I'm setting the stage for what? For future aspect. I can never lose hope. Yeosh, despair, is against the core of what a Jew is about. We have to recognize that when we're on the bottom, don't stop there. Don't stop at the nun. Keep on going and recognize Somech Hashem l'chol hanoflim. Hashem is the one who what? Who picks us up. And recognize at the end of 46, it's Somech Hashem, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. I'm fine. The Midas Harachamim, the aspect of mercy. And this is what's hinted at. There's no break between Vayigash and Vayichi. When Galus happens, and this is Galus, exile for the collective and for the individual. When we have challenges in life, You can't stop. You can't have a break between Vayigash and Vayechi. You have to keep on going because you can't give up. If I have a break, it means it's over, and it's never over. Somech Hashem l'chol hanoflim. He's holding us. He's there with us, and that's the agolos. Life is a circle. We have to be able to realize that we may find ourselves on the bottom of the circle. Don't ever give up. There is a top to the circle. And this is found in our Parsha this week of the bracha to Dan. And obviously all the brachas are universal. L'shuascha kivisi Hashem. For your salvation I yearn, Hashem. A Jew is always yearning for salvation. A Jew never gives up. There is no nun, only a samech, somech Hashem l'chol hanoflim. Ad kan.